Hello and welcome to Frock Flicks, the historical costume movie podcast. And I'm your host, Tristan L. Bast, with our original Broadway recording cast of...
Kendra.
Sarah.
Woohoo!
And 3 kittens.
Yay!
We're very excited about the kittens.
And today, the kittens and I, and all of us, are podcasting about Wings of the Dove.
I don't know. Actually, no.
So yes, we get sound effects. So we're going to start off with a little background info on the movie, which Kendra's going to provide.
Okay, so just a little bit about the movie. So it's based on a novel by Henry James that was published in 1902, and it's about a love triangle. Basically, the original novel is very much about repression and the threat of modern freedom. So the character of Kate Croy... That would be a cat jumping. The character of Kate Croy is sort of this threatening modern sexuality kind of thing. And so the director, Ian Softly, I hope I'm saying his name right.
It's not like he's going to come and correct you.
He might find out where we live and beat us up.
So he wanted to refocus the novel through a contemporary prism of psychologically probing storytelling. Anyway, he wanted to talk...
Can I interject?
Yes.
What year was this done in? Because there have been multiple Wings of the Doves.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
96, right? Or 97?
So
96.
This is the version with Helena Bonham Carter.
Yes, it is.
So we're just setting that up. Anyway, so he wanted to bring it into a
So the director wanted to update and do a very modern take in a way, obviously still staying historical, but he wanted to sort of reinterpret Henry James's story. So he was interested in people who are at odds with the conventions of the period that they're in, and he also wanted to bring in more of the sexual, erotic element, not in like an erotique sort of thing, but to get at the tensions and repressions and those sorts of things. He also wanted to sort of better humanize the character of Kate Croy. Apparently in the novel, she's much more sort of ruthless and cold-hearted, and he wanted to sort of get into some of the conflicts that she would have been experiencing, and her psychological makeup that would make her a more fully fleshed human being. So those are kind of the main things going on in terms of that. The one other thing that I was interested in was that the timepiece, or the time of the original book was published in 1902, and the director decided to move it up to 1910, and I was wondering, well, just why? Is it just, were there a whole bunch of Edwardian movies coming out or something? But according to him, he wanted to bring the story more specifically to the beginning of the 20th century, the very beginning of modern times, and this is a quote from the director. Visually, 1910 was completely different from a decade before. Electricity was suddenly more prevalent, the London Underground had just been built, and fashion was changing dramatically. There were revolutions and changes all around. It was the beginning of the modern world as we now recognize it, and the beginning of the way we act within it. So I think he's trying to contrast that modern sensibility and sort of the germs of that sort of origin within this more repressed Victorian society.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that, like, why did he bump it up? Because there was a lot of, early Edwardian movies coming out. And actually, this movie was contemporary with Titanic.
Yes.
Right.
Another,
the set big James Cameron
Titanic. Set in 1912, right?
Yes.
Yeah, 1912.
Yes.
And of course, Wings of the Dove came out also in 1997, and it was set in 1910. And of course, they ended up contending for a lot of Oscar nominations, Best Actress, Best Cinematography, also, of course, Best Costume Design. And talking about the costume design, this was done by Sandy Powell,
right?
Our other favorite costume designer who just seems to nail the historical, any historical period you throw at her in movies, she just does a phenomenal job with. And so she ended up losing that Oscar nomination to
Deborah Lynn Scott.
For Titanic, because Titanic swept those Oscars,
which I think is a travesty. And we'll talk much more about the costumes in a moment. But I think that this Wings of the Dove so much more captures what was going on in fashion versus Titanic, which I think was a bit conservative and stuffy. But let me give you just a little bit more background. So again, Sandy Powell designed the costumes, and she wanted to obviously, as any probably theatrical costume designer wants, to capture the time, the place, and the emotions. So she was really interested in fashion change and how fashion was becoming more looser, expressive, and casual. The whole sort of change from a real tightly fitted, buttoned up look to a more relaxed and openly sexual style.
A lot of Orientalism in this.
For sure, there's a lot of Orientalism.
Yeah. We'll get to that,
in
a lot more detail.
She also was trying to reference how the 20s are sort of coming, that sort of thing. And then also, specifically when they go to Venice, she wanted to enhance the fact, she says, this is a quote, she wanted to enhance the fact that the characters have been totally removed from the oppression of city life. There is a release and a liberation that is reflected in their flowing, unstructured garments. I was keen to avoid a cream lace look, and instead the costumes in Venice feature lighter, brighter colors and have more of an ethnic North African look. And so she was trying to show that their trip to Venice, again, allowed them to escape from the conventions of London society, both dress-wise, but also, of course, what's going on in the dynamic between the three main characters.
So, the story itself is very complicated, kind of convoluted in a lot of ways, emotionally, and the costume, this is one of those films where the costume really directly meshes and reflects a lot of the story. They really are, I think, a great fit together.
Absolutely. And without sort of making it up, like I think Sandy Powell really took silhouettes, colors, fabrics, all those things that are completely accurate to the era, and used that strategically rather than saying, oh, I'm going to put them all in yellow to symbolize, I don't know, urine.
Right.
Everybody peeing on each other's dreams.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then of course talking about the pissing,
set design and visual design in this movie is all part of the emotional trajectory of the film too. Again, Rain.
We were loving Rain as a character.
Rain
it
as
really
a character.
did. It was the underrated performance.
Yeah.
Of the film.
Best supporting actor, Rain.
Right.
Yeah. So
very
all of
atmospheric.
these things move together in this film. So I don't think you can talk about the plot without talking about we can't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure people can, but they suck.
That's a different podcast.
And that's why we have this podcast. That's why we
Yes.
love these kinds of movies, because it shows you the importance and the strength and the meaning of costume design.
Another thing is none of us have read the book. Am I correct?
That's true.
None of us have
I've read
the book.
other Henry James, but not this specific one. So.
And I really, I don't have like the baggage that I usually get when I read a book, and I think I've got the
They've changed.
and I don't really carry that with this
Yeah.
movie. So and this is actually the first time I saw this movie. So this was my first experience with this movie.
I
know. Kendra was scandalized.
No, it actually was super. I had that excitement of getting to watch a movie that you adore with someone who you know is going to adore it.
And it's
so there was a lot of
beautiful.
you have to. This is the best scene.
Yeah, stop being so drunk. God, Sarah, pay attention.
Put down your phone.
So I would say, having never seen this movie before, and of course it's almost 20 years old, and of course I've always
It
known
can't
about
be 20 years old. I just
I
saw it in the theater.
97.
I just saw it in the theater
It's
a
3
few
years.
years
It's
ago.
17
Hush.
years old.
I'm
okay?
getting my oxygen tank out.
Stop it.
Anyways, we're all a bunch of old bitches.
God.
So the point is, though, that watching it for the first time, A, it doesn't look dated.
No, not at all.
Very timeless. B, the costuming is just stunning.
Can I just swear for a minute?
Yes.
It's fucking amazing. Every single fucking thing. You should have heard us. I mean, just the opening scene, that fucking blue hat. Tristan and I fighting over this stripy suit.
Which we realized there were two stripy suits.
So now
we can each have one.
We've achieved detente. Exactly.
God, it was amazing.
I just called dibs on all the Fortuny gowns.
Oh my god, the four Toonie gowns.
There are so many.
The aunt who's in, it's great. She has this aunt who's the controlling figure and wants Kate to marry for money and has pulled her out of this life of poverty. And so you would expect that to be the frilly, stuffy, buttoned up older character, but instead Charlotte Rampling, the actress who plays her, is dressed in probably the most fashion forward clothing of any of it.
Very
These
bohemian.
amazing, this like printed, painted dresses, Egyptian textiles, turbans, like Oh my god!
And all of that is great because it shows how that character has this strong. She's a very controlling character. She's a very independent woman. I mean, she is fashion forward which fits because she is this independent woman who is trying to force her niece Kate into a different life, to marriages potentially that she doesn't want because she's against the Kate and what's his face
Merton, who is her more working class love, who she's known since
forever,
since before her aunt took her in.
Yeah, and so she, so her aunt is visually this woman who is totally, ballsy. You can see it just on screen because of what she's wearing. She's wearing these amazing things.
Well, and I just had a thought, and, when you go for the, not literalism, but the literal figuratism, blah, blah, blah. Like, maybe the aunt is shown in being such artistically creative clothing because she's so creatively good at manipulating Kate. So, despite, you know what I mean? Because she's so good at it.
She's skillful. I mean, she's a skillful social manipulator. Yes, and even Lord Mark, or whatever his name is, points that out.
Yes.
So, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, which is, the artistic aspect of it, talking about the aunt and how she's very, artistic and fashion forward. And this movie has a very strong art historical current undercurrent to it. And one of the things, of course, you see in one portion of the film is they're looking at an exhibition, the characters in an exhibition of modern art, basically, and there's a Klimt, and it looked like a Sheila, but was another one, but anyway. And they pause before Judith sleeping, which is a very famous Klimt portrait. And at the very end of the movie, there's a part of there's a scene where Helena Bonham Carter's character Kate curls up naked on a bed, and it's definitely, again, it's referencing that Klimt portrait, which was I thought was really clever. And now I kind of want to go back and watch and see if there's any other art history, because when they go to Venice, and it's one of those things you're going to look at and you're going to see, is that the was it Canello?
I can't
remember
Canaletto.
Canaletto.
Who's the early 20th century guy who always did the Roman revival paintings? They're always, there's urns and columns and stuff, and these women are in these, his interpretation of Rome. I mean, we'll find these.
We'll talk about. Somebody will do an art.
But there's totally a shot of them when they're on the steps of the church.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot more art history kind of woven into the cinematography of this. But I just found the representation, of course, the very obvious, very famous Klimt. Judith sleeping, and then, of course, Helena Bonham Carter at the very end of it is exactly mimicking her pose. And that to me, I was like, oh, hey. Well, but I think there's a subtler undercurrent.
Well, and those two are, of course, really tying it together, because that first scene is the three of them when Kate introduces Millie, the heiress, the American heiress, and her lover. At the art exhibition. It's the first time that all three of them meet, and then I love the last time that when Helena Bonham Carter's character is mimicking that portrait is when she and her lover are kind of essentially breaking up. At the very end, after Millie's dead. Obviously, spoilers, duh.
But Millie is the third, completely in that scene, even though she's dead.
Exactly.
She's and that's the whole point of the ending, being that she is going to always be the third person in the room, third person in the relationship.
Yeah, so that painting is representative in both of those scenes. So it ties it all. It ties everything.
And too funny to me that Kate is trying to get these two together, and that she introduces them in front of a painting of a naked redhead who obviously looks somewhat like Millie, and just plops them in front of a naked woman and is like, oh, chat amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to talk about, since you guys have talked about your, kind of touched on your favorite costumes, was my favorite thing about this was the Fortuny, the gowns. The whole scenes in Venice, the second half of the movie takes place in Venice. And of course, Venice was the HQ, the headquarters of Fortuny, and his Fortuny was, of course, Mario Fortuny, who was a very famous Italian fashion designer in the very early part of the 20th century. And as early as 1900, he was starting his work. He thought of himself as a painter, though. He thought of himself as an artist. His father was a moderately successful, even somewhat famous artist of the mid 19th century, and so Mario Fortuny.
I think it's Mariano.
Mariano?
I think so.
Okay.
Anyway.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, you're right, it's
Fortuny.
Mariano. I've had a couple of cocktails. Anyways, Fortuny had a very strong desire to sort of follow in that painterly artistic footsteps of his father. However, he ended up somehow or another getting sucked into textile design. And of course, he's very famous now. We know him solely for his finely pleated Fortuny gowns, his Delphos gown, which was, I believe, introduced in the early 1900s. And it's still a mystery as to how these gowns were created, but they were meant to be worn kind of as tea gowns. They weren't meant to be worn over corsets. Again, this is that early period of the 20th century where the upper crust is sort of dabbling in this idea of getting rid of the strictures of undergarments and being more relaxed. And so he was very interested in creating these natural silhouettes. And you were going to say something?
Oh, just that I think what's interesting, if you've ever seen, I mean, obviously many of you know what these are, but if you don't, if you've ever seen a broomstick skirt, it's kind of similar because they're always of this really thin, I would say like a China silk kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then the pleating, they're pleated really tightly. And then you, when you wear it, the pleats are going to expand over your curves. But so it can be very relatively figure hugging without being like a wiggle dress.
Right. And I've been obsessed with Fortuny for a number of years. And one of the frustrating things is that there's not a lot of information as to how he made his gowns, because he had a kind of a very proprietary patented system.
There's a secret?
Yeah, it's a secret. It's a trade secret.
Still is.
There are actually, however, this is the interesting thing. Frustrating thing and interesting thing about researching Mario Fortuny is that there's sort of this mythos of Fortuny as having the secret to pleating his gowns in a particular way. However, there's actually patents that exist of his mechanisms that he created to pleat these gowns. They don't give a lot of information as to how, whether they're heat set in a special way, whether they are wet, and they dry them in they're pleated in a certain fashion and then heat set, to make the pleats stay. We do know things like the pleats actually would over time fall out. They were not broomstick. They were not like, twisted, like you would do a broomstick pleat. They were actually probably more akin to arashi shibori, which is a Japanese technique of pole wrapped pleating, where you take, like, you can actually look this up on YouTube. There's a lot of interesting tutorials on how to do it, where you take a PVC pipe and silk fabric, you wrap the silk fabric around the PVC pipe. It's wet, and then you run a cord, you wrap a cord around it, you scrunch the fabric and the cord down, and then you let it dry, and it creates this very finely accordion pleated type of pleat. And another supposition is that he did another shibori technique, which is of course just running lines of gathering through the fabric to gather it up, and then he heat set it or wet set and heat set in a specific way to make the pleats hold their form. But it was understood that the pleats would actually, while being worn, in the seat area, if you sat down, they would flatten out, or if water got on them, they would lose their shape. So you would be able to send the dress back to Fortuny's workshop in Venice, and he would replete the
lifetime guarantee.
Yeah, exactly. There was a lifetime guarantee. And I could go on and on forever about Fortuny because I've done a lot of research on it. But I will say that the gowns in this particular film are not Fortuny gowns. They were actually made, and they're not by Sandy Powell either. They are by a husband and wife team in Wales, Patricia and Charles Lester. You can look them up at, I forget their website, but Google Patricia and Charles Lester. They stumbled across this, I think they do arashi shibori is how they make their Fortuny gowns, or Fortuny-like gowns. In the 70s, they were experimenting with different shibori techniques, and they just kind of liked the way it looked. Because when you wrap a shibori silk, you can do all these interesting dyeing effects and things with it. But what happened was most people iron the silk out after it's been dyed, and you lose the pleats. Well, this couple kind of liked how the pleats look, took it apart, and then started making gowns that actually directly mimicked Fortuny gowns. According to Charles and Patricia Lester, that was unintentional. They actually had no idea about Fortuny at all until people came to them and said, oh my God, this is exactly like what Fortuny gowns look like. And then they kind of made the connection that way. But when Wings of the Dove, of course, in the 90s, they apparently supplied the Fortuny-esque gowns for the film, which was really an interesting thing that I kind of stumbled upon in my research. So
Cool.
Yeah, that was my info dump.
No, that was fascinating.
Very good.
Wow, look, you heard it here.
I know, I actually did research. Holy shit.
Right. So, yeah.
And Patricia and Charles Lester are actually very active on social media, by the way. So they have a Facebook page, and they still sell their stuff. They also Fortuny. The Fortuny label is still around. It's kind of gone through a renaissance in the last 30 years. They've been revived, but they still sell. They do a lot of home furnishings right now. They do a lot of lamps and pillowcases and fabrics and things like that.
For you can get your couch done.
Yeah,
and it would be insanely expensive.
Right, it would be $1 million, but hey, it'll be Fortuny.
Don't sit on it.
Yeah, but one of the things that they are known for still selling, which are relatively inexpensive, is they still do Fortuny pleated scarves. So you can actually find those on eBay still.
Yes, you can.
One of these days I'll get one and I'll be all sitting there how did they do it? Supposedly,
reverse engineer your
they
scarf.
supposedly still use the Fortuny patented technique to pleat these.
Yes, you can find those.
Yeah.
That was definitely all the Venice section, including the Millie's dying gown.
The Millie's dying gown.
Which was so pretty. She's in this cream Fortuny pleated gown on a matching cream damask.
In this room, I swear,
couch.
Hasn't that room been used for Vogue photo shoots or something?
I'm sure.
It's this
whole movie's a Vogue
palazzo.
photo shoot.
Oh my god.
So I did really love the art direction of the film, both in the Venice section, even the early sections where you have these ballroom scenes, or actually no, they weren't even balls. They
Parties.
Were just parties.
Yeah.
These parties in these gorgeous rooms.
Jesus, with this
architecture that reflects, that coordinates with the clothing.
We're oohing and awing over a dress, and they're like, oh my god, I want that pillar.
They walk by
I want that mosaic.
And a mosaic, and they coordinate with the clothing. It's like the art direction and the costume design worked together seamlessly to create this world that reflected the emotions and the complications that were going on in their heads. So it was all one seamless whole. There was no... there just wasn't any gaps. There was no
absolutely.
drawbacks.
And it's super random, but I loved the use of the underground.
Yes.
And I don't even know why, other than, old-timey trains are cool, but that was really cool.
But that bit you had from the director about wanting to show the
modernism.
Does Devon Street Stop even exist anymore?
British friends, let us know.
Let us know.
Because that's the stop that they have the opening scene in.
Yeah, there's the underground, there's the bus, there's a lot of...
Yeah, the bus was cute.
Yeah,
there was a bus?
Kate sees Millie go to the doctor's office the first time.
Oh, right.
No,
she's on a... Was that a bus? I thought there was a
carriage. It was upper deck, yeah.
For some reason I thought that was a carriage.
So they really make use of those modern touches. It's definitely, going with that director's idea of showing the modern world and the contrast between the repressed Victorian ideas. And I guess the really repressed idea is the whole, Kate can't live without money. She can't cut loose. She can't just... Because Merton in the beginning says, marry me.
Right.
Just marry me.
Well, and she gets to the point where she's just ready to go do that, but the problem being her aunt has her claws into supporting her father as well, and so she has that to hold over.
Yeah.
Her father,
Kate.
by the way, who is Dumbledore.
Yes, Michael Gambon.
Dumbledore as an opium eater.
Right.
It was pretty killer.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, it's... were there any drawbacks? Was there anything that didn't work in this movie?
No.
I don't know about that, but I guess the one thing I wanted to elaborate further on was that I think... not having read the book, but in line, for example, with Vanity Fair, which we've podcasted, adore the Reese Witherspoon movie, and I really enjoy the book. But I'm cool with taking a character that's written somewhat one note, as it sounds like she is in the novel, and readers of the novel, feel free to correct me, but it sounds like Kate is pretty darn sort of...
despicable.
Yeah, and cold-hearted and contrivey,
anti-hero.
Yeah. But and I appreciated the fact that they made her a real person and with real conflict, so you understand where she's coming from, why these limitations are there. You understand her conflicting emotions. I love how she clearly grows to love Millie, and there's even a very, very slight erotic tension between the two. Or maybe not slight, but it's still small. But an erotic tension between the two. And I was saying as we were watching it, I think that all at the same time, she wants Millie's happiness, she wants Merton's happiness, she wants to run off with Merton, but she also wants Millie and Merton to be happy. She and Millie could run off together, blah, blah, blah. And I think that that's true to how any person is, that we we can hold multiple desires and emotions and conflicting whatevers all at the same time. Life isn't cut and dry, black and white, one note.
I think of her kind of, having not read the book, I think of her a lot like kind of the anti-Emma, in the sense that Emma was supposed to be written, Emma, of course, by Jane Austen, was supposed to be written as a very despicable character, but of course she's trying to give play the matchmaker for her friends, and then of course there's all sorts of, shenanigans that ensue, as you cannot manipulate people's emotions that way and not, suffer the consequences. But I kind of look at Kate's character as being sort of the modern era cynical version of Emma, in that I think and if I had never actually read any of the background of the novel and realized that, of course, Kate's character was supposed to be portrayed as kind of a dislikable major character or main character, I would have watched this movie and just assumed that she was doing this as a favor to Merton and to Millie, to try to Millie's dying and she wants to just basically like a cat bringing a wounded wounded critter to your front door and saying, here you go. She's bringing Merton to Millie and saying, or vice versa even, and it's kind of just saying, you two get together, make Millie's last days happy, and then Millie will reward Merton and set Merton up. And then I think, of course, what the ultimate goal in the novel is that Kate will reap the benefits thereafter. Merton gets Millie's fortune, but I think in the movie it comes out much more nuanced than that. It's almost as if she's trying to say, I can't have Merton, so I'm going to set Merton up with somebody who's going to take care of his life after, and it'll be a temporary, small time period. Merton just pays his dues for a couple of weeks or months or whatever until Millie kicks it. But Millie's happy at the end. She gets, she gets
part
to
of that
fall
motivation
in love.
is actually love for both of them. Now, I'm not saying, of course, she isn't completely self-interested, and that doesn't backfire against her. And then, of course, also, she's the one who sets the unraveling in motion, and that she goes to Lord Mark. Once she feels like she's lost Merton, she goes to Lord Mark and gives the hint, and he goes in and outs things as she's trying to break it back up. So it's complicated. Things reverse on themselves and have unintended consequences and all that. But again, to me, it makes it a much more
it's pretty realistic,
interesting, realistic, enjoyable character study than if it was just she's a cold-hearted shark.
Right. Yeah. She's very, she's the character of Kate, and especially the way our total girlfriend, Helena Bonham Carter, portrays her. If you ever hear this, we love you, Helena Bonham Carter. You're our platonic.
We want to be you.
You're our platonic
our ideal of you. We want to be you.
I don't know. Whatever. You could be a total asshole.
If you could just give us your hair, that'd be good.
Dude, really.
Give me your hair. Look.
Okay, donate it to Tristan. She needs it. But anyway, I love the way that Helena Bonham Carter played the character of Kate, because she didn't play it one-dimensionally. She didn't give it a one-note performance in that there's this machination that she's Machiavellian kind of manipulation behind the scenes. She clearly cares, and she's clearly conflicted.
And feels guilty about it as she's doing it.
She feels, no matter her decision, no matter what she does, she personally is fucked.
Yeah.
And so she's kind of thinking, I think, that it comes out in the film, it feels like she's really kind of making decisions, as in, no matter what I do, I'm screwed. So what's the best thing for the people that I care about? And, of course, and then she can't help herself, with the jealousy that she feels as a result. And
she wants it both ways, and she knows she can't have it either way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she knows she's going to screw herself.
I mean, if it were the
tortured jealousy part.
If it were the 21st century, 100 years, if it's 100 years today, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they all could go off and have a little triad and be happily.
Yeah, be a polyamorous community.
Or for that matter, she could have a job and not,
I know.
She could work at the gas and sip and it'd be fine.
She could get a job at Starbucks, send the money to her dad.
Yes. Join a punk rock band.
You never know.
Shave her head.
Yeah. They could live, they couldn't live in Silicon Valley on his journalist salary.
They could live in Kansas.
Yeah, they could live somewhere.
Shout out to Kansas costumers and listeners.
Well, actually, we have a friend now in Kansas.
We do?
Lindsay.
No, she's in Tennessee.
No,
Kentucky.
Kansas?
Kentucky.
It's one of those K-states.
Yeah, it's a
I'm drunk,
flyover
Lindsay. I love you.
Sorry.
One other character I wanted to talk about is Millie. And I love her because she's a redhead. But
Shocked.
I know. Shut up.
What, do every redhead just get like
A free pass from me. Absolutely.
Can we find like
Let's
one?
find a movie with a really shitty asshole,
Okay.
shittily dressed
Okay.
redhead.
And see if it flies with me.
Okay.
But I also like
Submission.
that she is multiple things, but that she's not a goody two-shoes. She's not mealy. She's not.
find
She's
her
not.
kind
No.
Well, she's not. What's her fuck from Gone with the Wind? You know.
Melanie.
Melanie, whatever.
Whatever.
I like that she's she's fun, she's relatable, she's down to earth. I like that she really has the connection with Kate as well as Merton. Blah
Okay,
blah blah.
I'm sorry.
Tristan objects.
You're a sap because she's a redhead.
Yes.
Okay. Millie is just. She is a goody two shoes. She's only there. She's there. She fulfills a purpose, and obviously it's a great purpose because it moves the plot along. But as a character herself, I mean, she's just so open and generous and like unbelievably so. Frankly, she's like she's like, oh, you're my best friend. Oh, I'm in love with you. Oh, everybody is so wonderful. I love you. Oh,
I have a point to that.
You know?
I have a point.
And
to
it's just
that.
because she's dying? What?
No. Actually, it's funny because it's something that my British friends have said to me about the character is kind of the generic characterization. Cliche American. Not the obnoxious American who's wearing tennis shoes and khakis.
The other
and
cliche American.
Fanny pack or anything like that. It's the idea that Americans are, and they kind of say this in the film too, that one of the characters remarks that they could tell that Millie was an American because of her smile and her laugh.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I hear from my British friends, in that you can always spot an American because they're the one with the open smile, the open attitude about the welcoming.
But
except for Tristan. Tristan's like the shitty American who hates
am
everybody.
That's true.
So,
but Henry James is an American writer.
I'm just saying.
Why
That
do
is something that's been backed up by people we know.
We have sources.
He lived in both. And,
all right,
and
Edmund, if you're listening to this, tell Edmund to cite that because he said it to me.
I get that, and I get that, and I get it is kind of a trope. I know, I understand that, and James.
But I think that was to say, that Millie, of course, is incredibly different in the same way, and especially in the film, you see this a lot. Millie is this very bright, light, adventurous. Let's do this. Let's climb these stairs and look at all these things and be adventurous. And whereas the other, the British characters are like, oh no, I possibly. But it doesn't possibly.
Doesn't make her anything less than a character style. As
she's
opposed
very.
to,
I would say
I like her. I think she's nuanced.
I don't think she's one dimensional. But I'm not saying she has as much depth as Kate's character has.
No,
I am somewhere in the middle.
The fact that she, if nothing else, on some level, she knows things are going on between Kate and Merton.
She's definitely savvy.
And yet she still is able to fool herself.
Do you really think she figures it out?
Not that she figures. I think
especially in the movie.
I think she resists. I think she resists. I think she stamps it down. But I think on some level she knows, but she denies it.
No, I think I'm pretty obvious in the movie. She knows exactly that there's something going on between.
I don't
Kate
think
and
she
Merton.
figures it out until way.
But I think the thing is she always knows that there's some sort of frisson between the two of them,
and she has plausible deniability until Lord Mark comes and tells her for sure.
And then of course at the when Lord Mark tells her, she basically forgives Merton.
Right,
but that just shows that, of course, that she's so
noble,
good-hearted, dying woman, character who's so angelic that she's not ready for this world. This world is too bad. She
must die.
Yeah, and apparently Tristan is vomiting all over her laptop right now.
Yes.
God,
Tristan's really a fan.
But I was not at all.
Just because she's a redhead.
I was not
curly too.
She had great hair.
She did have really
Everybody had great hair in this movie.
That's true. There was some really good hair in this movie.
And great turbans. Even Charlotte Rampling didn't have her hair showing, had that beautiful turbans.
Yeah, so here's my thing about these movies. We always talk about the costume designers, the people who have the vision that drives everything, but we never get to know who does the hair. Who does those fabulous hairstyles? Who does the hats?
Hat maker?
Who does the shoes? Who does the gloves? These people are nameless faceless
staff, the rest of the
the
costume department.
supporting costume department that support these amazing.
Because I've looked,
directors.
Most of them aren't on IMDb.
No.
You get like maybe 5 names.
If you know anyone who does hair, makeup, anything for any of these movies and hats and the accessories kind of portion of things,
all the rest of the stuff,
we would love to hear names about these people that work on that. We know a couple. We know a tiny amount of people that do these sort of like very amazing uncredited work
and
for costume
we
movies.
have plans to interview them and get that stuff out
but
to you guys.
These largely are unsung, and I think that's a real travesty because these are the people that really kind of make up the details and the nuts and bolts of like why we love films
example
like this.
that I think a lot of people might know about is on the BBC productions like Elizabeth R. I can't even remember the credited costume designer's name now, but Jean Honeysett, who wrote the fabulous books that a lot of us use for theatrical costume design, she actually was one of the stitchers and costume builders on some of those gowns that were recreating specific portraits. So there's one name, who wasn't the credited designer. She wasn't the designer. She didn't run the shop. She didn't draw the designs, but she was in the shop building the gowns, doing the fittings, doing the research, and wrote books about it. So because she wrote books, that's how we know her.
And that's one of those things.
So it's all those people
and also
that we don't know about for all these other movies.
When I was first researching the film Wings of the Dove, and I, of course, knew the film previously for having its beautiful Fortuny gowns, and I was thinking, in my mind, I knew Sandy Powell had was the costume designer for it, and thinking, no, that was her. And then only in digging, really actually digging, and I kind of stumbled across it accidentally, was that this couple in Wales had actually supplied the Fortuny gowns for this. That's not stuff. Well, Sandy Powell has this amazing vision who probably said, we want Fortuny gowns, let's go source them. Yeah. But the people that actually made them, I mean, that's an incredible thing that really deserves recognition. And I feel like we don't know those people, and it's sad. And I really, I feel like so sad about it.
I know.
Well, she's really reclaimed. But I want to get back to...
We love those people.
So we absolutely do. But now I would like to rave about their work and about Sandy Powell's work because I would like to focus in on some of the costumes that we love.
Some specifics.
First of all, there may be... Okay, Tristan didn't love the one purple dress that Millie was wandering around in Venison.
I didn't love that one.
Yeah. Oh, no, that was Sarah.
I thought that was like the least well thought
and I
out.
question the fact that in one of the final scenes, Kate shows up to Merton's house and then disrobes and is wearing a corset with nothing on underneath. No chemise, no drawers, no whatever.
She was just there to DTF.
Now that could be, it could be the equivalent of
like chafing,
a raincoat, but it would not be comfortable. But
other
other than
a full
that,
dress over it when she walks in
I know, but that would not be comfortable.
I know. That's why I'm with Kendra.
But
she got nothing on
I need to talk about the hats. The hats in this are fucking amazing.
So fucking amazing.
Fucking amazing. The opening scene where they're on the underground, she's wearing this amazing wide crown hat with this beautiful ribbed silk blue. It is ribbed for my pleasure. Blue bows and edging around it, and then she has these much shorter silhouette narrow into the head toques, which are fabulous, and then these like egret sprays, and then in the
so many birds died for this film.
In the end, there's this black hat that's like dripping with feathers and ribbons that we were battling over.
It was that hat was too big for Merton's little shabby room. It bumped against the door frame as she came in.
Did it really?
It did.
That was probably symbolic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
her penis is way too big.
The fucking hats were out fucking standing, and then the dress. I mean, so many beautiful dresses, and one of the things, I mean, it was interesting because we were debating, those of us who like this style, and this is one of my like top 3 eras that I love.
I really love this style too.
I don't even like this era, but this movie does it.
Partially it's the Orientalism, which brings all these beautiful fabrics and jewel tones in, but I love an era like this, and actually it's probably one of the things I like about 18th century, where you have a firm understructure and then a drapey thing going on over it, but that drapey thing doesn't work without that understructure, and so the interplay between the two, and they just do this so beautifully. So many beautifully draped gowns.
Can I just interject into this too when we're talking about those costumes that you guys both loved? You two, Kendra and Tristan, were able to identify at least one of the gowns that possibly was reused in Downton Abbey.
Yeah. I will totally look this up on the recycled costume, recycled moviecostumes.com site, which is an amazing site. Thank you.
It's one of our favorites.
One of our friends. Because there's one of the early scenes, a dinner. Actually, there's two dinners that Kate's at, where she's wearing a black dress. Where I could totally swear I've seen this dress on Lady Mary.
It's all black. It has a V-neck, and then it has sheer sleeves, and the sleeves are a sheer black, but they've like been pleated, or maybe they have a ribbon or something, some kind of stripe. It forms
a visual stripe.
Yes. So one of the things too is, of course, Lady Mary.
Yeah, Lady Cora.
Yes.
Elizabeth McGovern. Is the
companion of Millie.
I know. I haven't watched Downton Abbey either, except the first episode.
We'll work on that.
I know.
But so it's a relatively small role in this film. But Downton fans will be like, oh, hey, yeah, there she is. And again, movie costume recycling is huge because you make all this stuff. They don't just trash it, They just stick it in the.
Goes into Angels.
It goes into Angels or cost prop, and then
Western costume.
In LA, and the next film. Oh, we're doing 1910s. Well, what have we got to stick on all the extras? Oh, on extras.
Oh yeah,
the scene where Kate sets up a lunch for Millie and Merton, and Kate, I remember one of them's walking in the door. This woman walks by. She's on screen for half a second. The back of her dress has this beautiful pattern of tiny little buttons, all up and down, and this beautiful. It's gorgeous, and you just see the back for a second. And she's an extra. I thought, oh, who is this character? No, she's just walking out the door.
And a lot of the
never see her again. Gorgeous.
Yeah. And in a lot of the party scenes, I was looking at, like the headdresses, all of that was so, so beautiful. And we also were really liking the Venetian Carnival scene. Yeah. For sure, the leads were wearing great outfits. I think we both loved Kate in the Spanish bullfighter outfit. But all of the
Millie's dress, white. It's the white dress. It's and I'm gonna probably butcher the pronunciation. Assuit, Assuit. It's a type of Egyptian textile that is horrifically expensive to get the originals, but especially in the 1920s, but a little bit before that, was incredibly popular with that whole Egyptian revival. And she's wearing this white gown that's made out of this Assuit material that's got the hammered silver threads woven throughout it, and the real deal, the real stuff. That fabric itself, runs hundreds of dollars for a panel, a small panel of it. You can get reproduction stuff that isn't nearly as good, but it's still, if you can find the actual stuff. But yeah, and then also the 18th century costumes. It was very cool seeing it. Like, if this was an 18th century movie and we saw those 18th century costumes, we'd be like, holy crap, that's shit. But the fact that it's a 1910s take on it, and you're like, it's cool.
It's costumes.
Yeah,
it's costumes.
They're wearing costumes, literally costumes. Yeah. So. Again, we haven't really found anything we didn't like except for that one scene where she's wearing a corset with nothing under
the chafy corset.
Yes, the chafing. Ow.
And also, she was only in it long enough to get undressed and shag.
Yeah. What's also great too is that Zandy Powell and the many highly talented craftspeople picked up on both the drapey, orientalistic look, but also the tailored look. So there's some fabulous layered tailored suits that I love. There are these Helena Bonham Carter wears maybe the same one, maybe more than one, where it's a cutaway jacket and then these really long tails that go all the way down to her hem in back, and they're so cool. And then she has that blue velvet fitted coat with like fur bands, and oh my god, and so these beautiful tailored pieces all mixed in as well. Oh, and Sarah was dying over Millie's cocoon coat.
Oh, we love the green. Well, see, I'm a big fan again of Fortuny and also Poirot, who also is well known at this period of time too for his cocoon silhouette. And the only thing that would have made my heart happier about this movie is that they'd actually included some of the wacky kind of like short hoop skirts that
the lampshade
dresses. But they had a lot of the cocoon coats that were straight out of Poirot's.
Poiret.
Poiret.
Well, just because Poirot is the
you're right,
detective,
fine.
yeah,
and I don't want people to
which was set in that era
Yes,
too.
a small, fat Belgian guy who
Yes,
who
yes.
solves
Designs some great
murders,
coats.
designs fabulous coats.
Yes,
But
he does.
I was also going to say, Kendra has actually made a dress based on one of the costumes in this film, and we should talk a little bit about that, maybe.
Yeah, I made the my own version of the dress that Millie wears when Kate tries to set them up for a lunch date, and Merton bails because he realizes he's been set up. And she wears this beautiful, her version is a purple and
Gold.
Copper changeable silk dress that then has a belt and cuffs and inset in a brocade. And again, it's one of those really pretty draped, loose sort of gowns, but it then over this fitted foundation, and then the belt and things like that.
We'll post a
tailor it
picture
back
of
in.
it too
Yeah,
on the
we'll
blog,
definitely
so you
link
can
to
all ogle
Yeah.
the beauteousness.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Everything. So yeah, okay. So there were nothing distractive.
No, it was so good.
Yeah.
So
So go
good.
watch it,
If you
people.
haven't, if you've seen it, watch it again. If you haven't seen it, sit down. Don't have hand sewing.
No.
None of that, because
You need to keep your eyes.
it's a fabulous movie, but you will die over the visuals. Die.
And it's a crime. It's kind of a crime that it lost out to Titanic.
Really, it is. Titanic
Yeah.
is not as
I mean,
inspired.
Titanic
We'll
has some
talk
really
about-
good costumes.
It's competent.
But, yeah,
It's perfectly competent,
Yes.
but
just
it
blows it out of the water.
Well,
no, absolutely.
No pun intended.
Okay, that too.
Ba-dum-ching!
Yeah,
Yeah,
so-
we'll get to that one in another date at some point. But and we'll have some resources too, because I know again, Kendra loves it. Sarah has a ton about the Fortuny stuff. We'll post that on the blog. Again, that's frockflix.com. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. Look us up, Frockflix. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes and leave us some reviews on iTunes. And comment on our blog if you liked it, if you didn't, if you want to correct all of our glaring omissions and screw-ups.
Feel free to tell us we're full of shit.
Totally. And
We embrace that.
Yeah, we welcome dissension.
So, yeah. Get on it.
Yeah.
Find us online. And wait for our next podcast, whenever and whatever that may be.
Soon.
So, thanks for listening.
Bye!